People are rolling in. Hello,
Woo!
Allison and Annette. Camille, Kathy Rhodes, woohoo.
Yay!
Gwen, Ellen. Oh my gosh, people from all over.
Look, we have people from, welcome to our 4th day. Awesome. Get in the room.
Oh my gosh, we have people from Kentucky. We have people from California, from Santa Barbara.
Wow. This is pretty exciting.
Hello, everybody. Welcome.
Yep, right. Welcome. Get in the room. Get comfortable because we have a rock and roll show for you.
Rock and roll. Woo.
Rock and roll.
And as you get settled, feel free to add to your name where you're from. We like to know where in Virginia you're from or where around the country you're from. Or you can say it in the chat. Oh, look at that. From Lexington, from Alexandria, Herndon, Norfolk.
Oh, there it is.
Virginia is represented in the house.
That's awesome.
Floyd.
Yeah, because one thing I want to make clear, I put those ratings out. If a district's marked, safe blue or lean blue or likely blue or whatever it's marked, and it makes the assumption that people are going to be doing the grassroots.
Georgia. We got Georgia. We got Maryland. Awesome.
This is cool. We got everybody in the room.
Rockville, West Springfield. We love those West Springfield postcarders. Woo-hoo.
Yes.
Woo-hoo. Welcome, North Carolina, California.
All right. All around the different states. Good for us.
Well, we've got so much to cover that we want to make sure we get started. So what do you think, Caps? Can we start?
Well, I think as we see people roll in the room, I think we should start at least with our beginning and our housekeeping, get that out of the way, and then go right to big discussion.
All right. So I'm Robin Warner, event director here at the Women's Summit. And before we get started with this amazing discussion today, I have a couple pieces of housekeeping. First, I want to remind everyone that the Women's Summit is a community of mutual respect and open-mindedness, and we have a zero tolerance for harassment. Everybody will be receiving daily emails. You get one in the morning that tells you the lineup of the day, and then you get one called the Summit Recap, which gives a summary of what occurred, as well as all sorts of special links. Remember, every session is being recorded, and you can find it up on the Network Nova YouTube channel. To get there, go to networknova.org/watch. Help us spread the word on social media about this amazing event. I have some hashtags there, and Stair will be putting in the chat various messages that you can chat out, but please go and spread the word why this is happening. Then lastly, in Zoom, you control what the screen looks like. You can make it gallery view where you see everybody on the screen at once, or you can do it as speaker view where you only see the person speaking. To find these controls, they're usually at the top right or bottom right of your screen. Now, this wonderful event would not be possible without the generous support of our sponsors. I want to thank the Campaign for a Family-Friendly Economy that's been with us since our very first summit, as well as Win Virginia and Virginia Our Way. Our partners have been with us every step of the way. We have Vote Like a Girl, Rowan Tree, the Impact Center, Barnes Alley. We have Virginia's List, SOAR, Resisterhood, Forward, and you'll be hearing more about Sam's headshots later on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we would have never attempted this virtual Women's Summit without the generous support of all of our supporters out there. Those of you who were willing to come to the in-person event, but agreed to switch over your ticket to a virtual event, thank you. This is because of you. And now I'd like to introduce a little PSA from one of our sponsors, and then we will get going.
This is Virginia. As Virginians, we know it can be difficult to keep track of what's happening in our government. Some services send updates, but many are tied to political agendas and can be hard to trust. Virginians need a nonpartisan, transparent way to monitor political outcomes and determine how they affect our lives. VA Our Way is a free update and information service that helps Virginians understand what's happening in the government. We provide factual updates with insights from both sides of the aisle, presenting a clear picture of the latest government outcomes and what they mean for you. Our team oversees the General Assembly in person each year and delivers real-time updates from inside the government. And we report not only headline news, but on a broad range of political issues, delivered in a digestible form to your inbox. Get informed and get involved today with VA Our Way.
Hey, that was easy. All of the above.
Catherine,
Yes.
it's all yours.
All right, all righty. Hello, everyone. Great to see you in the room again. It's Wednesday, Hump Day, and we have been rocking and rolling through this week. My name is Catherine White, the Program Director at the Women's Summit. I'm here with my awesome team, Robbins Warner, Sarah Calhoun, and on the controls in the chat today is Rosemarie Savino, who will be looking at the chat. So make sure when you're using the chat and want to put questions in the question and answer that put it right in there and she'll let me know. And we will be taking a halftime chat break because we want to do a good job. This is virtual, is new to us in the sense of our summiting. And we want to make sure we really are responding to you in the chat and make sure you talk back and forth to each other. With that said, I want to welcome you to day 4 of the Women's Summit Experience, brought to you by the E that stands for Elucidate and Elections. And today, and today's session is the Power Lunch, the 2020 predictions, and geez, do we got a good show for you. Today's speakers are Rachel Bitecofer, over there, girl, good to see you in the room. She's a political analyst, a senior fellow at the Niskanen Center. Niskanen, how do you say that? Niskanen Center. Assistant Director of the Watson Center for Public Policy.
No longer, nope.
Oh, no longer?
Just the Niskanen Center.
You did that. We're gonna, okay, that was on your bio. How about that?
Yeah, I guess it didn't get updated.
It's okay. It was okay. And, but you know, we'll just.
Hey, I kicked that stuff off like the dirt on my shoes, you know?
I love it. Well, well, good. So it's always good to stand corrected, as we say. We like to try to get it right. And you are one thing that I won't get wrong. You're a badass election whisperer. So we'll talk about your show at the end of the show. So feel free to plug it because I know it kicks off tonight.
Thank you. Thanks.
And Ashlei Blue. Ashlei, welcome. Ashlei is the political director at Swing Left, and the grassroots activists have been working with Swing Left in Virginia, and also you've been part of our summit over the years. And we know that winning is the only option, and it's great that Swing Left is saying winning is everything, because this is really where it's at. And we did see that video, Winning is Everything, and it was pretty awesome. So what we're going to do, the format will be, Rachel, we'll kick it off with you. We'll take a break for the chat check, and then we'll go kick it over to Ashlei and really follow it up with that grassroots activism. So with that said, I'd like to say a few things. First time talking to you in person, but I follow your Twitter. You're quite awesome. You got it right out of, from in 2018 because of what you saw in 2017. Why that's interesting to us is because we sort of started this kind of journey then. Women stood up, we got busy, and we also, like you, look at things differently. Women, we're also badass, and we don't follow the rules. We break the rules sometimes, or we realized that, we were down 34 seats in 2016, and we had to do things differently. And so we wrote postcards. They were really great. We really got them out across Virginia. We supported the women who stood up and run because there was no democratic infrastructure. If we would have paid attention and listened to the establishment, we wouldn't have won in Virginia. We did it. And I want to give ourselves a pat on the back, everybody. And that's what I like about you, because you also, we have an affinity to you, the way you think, the way you look at things. And so I like you to just sort of open that up about yourself, and then also how you do see things differently. And I think that what sets you apart and why the mainstream pundits kind of got it wrong. So just take it away, and we're just ready to listen.
Well, that's great. Well, thanks. Yeah, and my thoughts actually have evolved a lot over the course of the time period since I've agreed to come on. And now, because of course we've had this pandemic roll in, and it has kind kind of changed a little bit the contours of public perception, because I expected to be sitting here and have everybody really like convinced that Trump was going to win, because like the Nate Cohens and the Dave Wassermans were still putting out polls talking about how dominant Trump was doing, or how strong he looked in the swing states, and the economy, and da. And so like now I'm coming in and I like realize, oh, okay, like I think to some degree, like people don't trust the polls and the data and the forecast. And I think that PTSD is going to still be a major factor, which I write about in my forecasting work. But I do also think, people are starting to like feel a little confident, right? Which I think is very dangerous. So I have changed a little bit like my planned like approach to how I'm going to talk about things, because ultimately, the polls are very misleading. A lot of these polls right now they're not focused on likely voters. They're not looking at likely voter models. They're picking up, like the broader public perceptions, and they are picking up, like today, the New York Times Siena poll that came out has this huge national margin. It's 14 points. The swing state polls are going to drop tomorrow. With that 14-point advantage in the nationals, my anticipation is like the swing states are going to definitely show probably an outside of the margin of error advantage for Biden in many of the swing states, and within like margin but advantage Biden in the others like Arizona and Florida. Okay. And but one of the things that didn't get talked about or highlighted in the release is the high percent of people who are like, I don't know, because the election is months away. And so there's like 14 combined between people who are undecided and for people who are third party voting or whatever, right? And so like that's a ton of uncertainty. And some of it is picking up those right-leaning independents who are right now unable to say that they can still support this man whose ineptitude has murdered like 40,000 people and counting or whatever, right? And also the race issue, right? So the last time that these right-leaning independents were unwilling to publicly support Trump was the Access Hollywood video time period in October of 2016. And that's when they moved away from saying, I'll vote for Trump. Some of them moved to where they are now, which is like that undecided category, but then they all ended up voting for Trump, right? And so, it kind of makes Biden's lead look larger than it actually is when you have that uncertainty. And then, what I'm watching in the polls is also like how many of those third party left people from the primary are coming into Biden, right? And I want to see, eventually what I want to see is 90% of Democrats are saying they're going to vote for Biden the way that 90% of Republicans say they're going to vote for Trump. And unless we see that and we see it steady in the data, like Democrats are weak. Like the anti-Trump goal or world has a weakness on election day until and unless 90% of Democrats are set up. And, last night, the purging of many, Caroline Maloney is probably going to survive this purge, very barely, only because they didn't target her. There was no advertising or effort or, AOC action up there. She drew a challenger who, didn't get any attention, and they didn't really recognize her as weakness. And the reason is, by the way, folks, is because she is, and I only know this because I was at the conference last year, a long time card-carrying member of the Progressive Conference. So they didn't target her, but she could have lost her seat. She still may, when the final tallies are counted. But the action of that primary action suggests to me that there still may be a lot of left-wing dissatisfaction, and we still don't know where Biden's going with his pick. And until and unless he picks somebody who's not a moderate, like there is a lot of potential there, and I don't really care who it is. I think it should be a Black woman, because obviously there's a lot of anger and frustration, and Black people need representation right now. So I think like even the Biden team, you don't need a blind man to see that. You don't need even a blind man can see that right now, right? Right. I think that they're going to go with a female running mate of color, But beyond that, they really need a not moderate. Like, it doesn't have to be AOC, like left, but it just can't be a moderate.
Well, with that said, we have a perfect thing, a poll to do right now with you in the room. This would be a lot of fun. Robin, throw up the poll. And so what we'll poll our audience, and Rachel will see if what our grassroots people and see who's in the audience, what they think. So your top pick.
Okay.
Let's open it up.
Oh, you're going to do the poll.
We're going to poll right now. This will be fun for you.
Okay, yeah, let's see the poll. How many people are in the poll? It's a non-scientific poll, but let's see the poll.
Okay, so it's up on the screen. So we have 10
well, I can vote too, huh?
You can vote too, right? And yeah, we're trying to get, obviously, it's one poll. We have 10 candidates up there, and I actually got this from.
Everybody knows I voted for Stacey Abrams, so I might as well just say it out.
Yeah, right. Okay. So
I did write a whole New York Times op-ed about it. So it's probably worth just coming out and saying, you know.
So we'll give people about 10 more seconds, and then we'll close that poll. And also we want people in the chat to converse about this. Now, not in the sense, I think, Rachel, you're spot on. And this whole, I know I had a question here about the VP pick, because to me, I feel like until we see that, I think that's going to be really driving the young voters, the progressive voters.
Yes.
Now, the question is, because you speak about Democratic Party incompetence all the time, I saw you on Bill Maher's show, and that we sometimes have got it right. And in fact, you brought up when Amy Klobuchar got out, and we were able to narrow and winnow it down so Joe Biden could kind of move forward, and so it wasn't a disaster. Do you want to speak to that a little bit, and how we have made some good moves, but then we also are talking about, or you can talk about whatever the hell you want, but the Biden pick is important, and maybe Democrats are thinking about this, because we get frustrated out here. We're like, seriously, where are the messages, and who's leading the DNC?
Campaigns aren't for us; they're for them.
I mean,
I mean the people.
I have people say to me all the time, where's the DNC's voice? What's happening? And what I realized is we don't rely on that, anymore, the establishment.
We don't need a campaign, because we're already voting, right? Yeah, no.
So what do we have? We have, okay.
We have the results up now.
I see it.
Yes.
I see it. And you know what? Like, Kamala Harris, to me, is a great pick. I pray to God that they went back again, because I'm sure they already did. I mean, they can't be, I don't know. I never know, like, what's the level of competence going on in campaigns, because, like, I have this assumption that they're doing shit the way I would do things, but then I don't know, I hope so that they are, but, like, so I assume, like, when Harris was first vetted, the very first thing any idiot would do in this environment before George Floyd was murdered would be, oh, I have a really attractive candidate, but she has a career prosecutor background, and, that's kind of an iffy issue right now. I better go and look at her record and make sure that there's nothing back there that, looks like she's been coddling cops that, murder Black people, right? So I assume that had happened already once. Now, I assume that has gone back and happened even again, right? With even tighter scrutiny, right? Because, like, the worst thing that could possibly happen is they pick somebody who has covered up or abetted police violence.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Don't do that. Who definitely has not done that? Stacey Abrams. Never worked in law enforcement. I'm just saying, so, like, I like Kamala Harris. I think she's great. I hope to God she has nothing like that on her record. And, and I think she's a terrific candidate, but I definitely caution Team Biden. Fine comb, tooth comb. Yeah.
Yes.
Gotta look. Tighten it. Yeah,
I agree with you, because well, I'm also interested, because I think we obviously love Stacey Abrams. She was in Virginia, Lala. She was there in Prince William County, just for those candidates that won, because we flipped Prince William County, we flipped their board. We kept, we really did great work.
Oh, so she came up.
She came up there with New Virginia majority and did all that.
What makes me even happier is that you had the intelligence to bring her.
Right. Well, that was New Virginia majority, because Trump, they're just totally been doing this work, and where they're supporting her, and the fair vote is where it's at, and this is where Stacey Abrams, her role in Georgia. So with that said, though, what I want your opinion on, because I do hear this, is that this Stacey Abrams just isn't known.
Yeah.
And as well. And there's these people that say, we know Joe Biden, we need to pick somebody that could be president on day one. And I think
Yes.
that's why, to me, you're seeing her rise in the
Yes,
poll.
right,
She
right.
won last year, our poll at our Women's Summit, Kamala did, Harris. And so it's interesting to me.
Yeah.
But you're right.
And I actually think like with Harris's prosecutorial background as definitely a negative. I mean, it's a negative, okay?
Right.
But because of Biden's age, that's like an offset, right?
Right.
So like, as long as she has nothing and with a fine tooth comb, how can't I get that? I'm like Bush with strategery or nuclear. You know, as long as they look really close and there's nothing like really, really directly bad. Because, and the reason I say that is this, like the left thinks that Kamala Harris is a moderate. She is not, okay?
Right.
Like she is more liberal in terms of all votes ever cast, and voting should be what matters, not things that come out of people's mouths, votes, okay? All votes ever cast in the Senate, she's to the left of Bernie Sanders, okay? Because she knew she was gonna run for president, and she wanted to make damn sure that she was, you know, had her liberal bona fides. So you can map this out on all votes, she is to the left of Bernie Sanders. So she's not a moderate, she's a liberal.
Right.
So like ideologically, I think when people get that information that would be on the left, helpful, right? And as long as there's no literal skeleton in the closet we're talking about, because here's why. The Trump Death Star, and the reason Parscale was not fired after Saturday night, he is the only person who knows how to control the Death Star, is going after young Black voters who to exploit. If there's you know, whoever it is, they're going to exploit and send them misinformation and disinformation and ads, micro-targeted ads. Oh, you know, Kamala Harris is, you know, she's a wolf in sheep's clothing. Yeah. She helped murder this, you know, she helped these officers cover up a murder. You know, you shouldn't vote for her, because they know, like on the margins, at the end of the day, in Philly, in Detroit, in Milwaukee, if they can replicate what they did in 16, and suppress enough Black people from voting, and on the other side, the institutional side, have those suppression effects that they're going to be working, they can thread the needle. So like this is warfare we're in, you know, like that's why I'm just trying to get people to understand, like the other side is engaged in full frontal warfare, you know?
Right. And the Death Star as well, you know, and we're out here in the grassroots, we're sort of, you know, we're definitely the resistance, right?
You are. No, like it's not actually a misnomer, because we're in a war, and you are actually the resistance.
So it's finding the weakness, because every day you wake up and you say, wouldn't this be the normal thing that would just kill anybody, right? It just would stop any candidate or stop Trump, and the impeachment. I mean, you can name 100 million things, but with the disinformation comment is really important. So let's go to voter suppression so we can cover that. I mean, in your job in predicting, this leaves you in an interesting spot. I mean, and I know you brought that up in the beginning, but independent voters, how are you figuring out what people are thinking? And the second part is, you always say it's who leaves the house that determines, and how this is where you really understood the partisan part of this, and who goes to vote. Well, guess what? We're finding out in Virginia, Georgia, Kentucky, every state by state, it looks different how you vote.
Yep.
And how in the heck do you do this work now? What are you changing? What's your new thought on this work and looking at, I mean, how people on November 3rd, there's real problems with mail-in voting, and it doesn't matter who gets vote that didn't get counted. I mean, we're really up against some really interesting.
No, we are. I mean, that's why, like, you know, these people think like the polls matter, you know?
Right.
No, at the end of the day, it matters who can get a ballot in and how those ballots get counted, right? And like, then you've got this opposition. This is like the best, I mean, you know, I don't want to sound like, you know, please don't misread what I'm saying here. It's a very, there's a lot of emotion involved in the George Floyd protest for me on the issue of police violence. And, but another aspect of the protest movement to that was good was that it reminded the GOP that there was not full complacency of the American public, that the public has, because the public has looked asleep at the wheel. Other than the Women's March in January of 2016, there's been virtually no street unrest, right? And they went into the DOJ in DC did a political purge there. We just saw the fruits of that. Some of the fruits. We don't see most of them in the Flynn acquittal today, or the Flynn
Right.
whatever
you want to call that.
We didn't see most of those fruits though, because most of that came in Barr being able to end investigations that we really didn't know much about, right? They just tried to do the same coup in New York on Friday night, leading into the rally at 10:30 at night. It failed only because that Trump appointee turns out has more allegiance to the law than to Trump, right? They're going to make another hit in New York, because we know for sure now that, because we didn't know what was happening up there under Berman, but now we know that there's stuff under there that Barr wants his hands on, right? And all of these things happen, and there's no reaction in the public because most of the public is unaware. Most of the public has no idea, is not tuned in at all. The Floyd stuff at least makes them think, gives them pause to caution that they can only take suppression so far in the fall. Like they can do it, but they can't do it too boldly. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, so that was another, good aspect of that. They're aware that we're not that dead, right?
Well,
so, but you're right. So like in my work, the forecasting work, the analysis work, and then the other work, the Save America work, I am watching all these states and the suppression stuff very closely, and it keeps me up at night a lot.
It's a shit show. Could I say shit show?
It's a shit show. It is, because the other side, they do. I'm just saying, they're not going to lay over and die.
Yes.
They're not going to lay over and die.
I want to give Ashlei time to chime in. I want to ask you a question first. Are you able to stay to the end?
When's the end?
Well, we'll probably go a few minutes over because this is going to be good, but I'm at 1.
Oh, at 1. Yeah, you know what? If I could duck out and come back, I can come back.
You can, because I want you to think about the race in Virginia, the seat there in Dennis, the Riggleman.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking the Virginia Party, the Republican Party, I hope they make that mistake of kicking out these kind of libertarians and putting in these kind of really extreme conservatives. Are going to lose on that.
Yeah, the 5th now offers a new opportunity too. That's not something that was on the radar.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. These are kind of surprise and delights for us, and I'm sure for you, keep you just busy.
Yeah, and I really want to make one more key point about all the races in Virginia, and so I will come back if I could have a closer. That would be great.
Okay. Yes.
Are we going to let the questions from
yes, let's do a chat break. What do we have? A couple questions that may be answered, and let's just plan on going a little over so Ashlei has time, and we have a surprise coming up at the end. So what do we have here? I think a lot was on voter suppression that I saw. Any other questions? I'm gonna look in the questions. We talked about voter suppression. That seems really big, and we know that is a big indicator.
Shameless plug, if your question doesn't get answered here, you can tune in tonight to the premiere of the Election Whisperer, and I'm doing a live Q&A after that. You can submit questions there too.
Well, tonight your show, the Election Whisperer, I know we'll get you. I think a lot of people in this chat are interested in the Elaine and Lurie.
Yes, that's why I said I wanted to, if I could, address.
You'll come back for that, and then and about collaboration and about voting and about flipping the Senate, which I think Ashlei could talk about some of these. So let's wait. We'll have you come back, and let's talk to Ashlei, and then maybe even I will ask her some of these questions that are in the chat, because these are also swing left questions. Okay. All right. So thank you, Rachel.
I'll be back.
We'll see you. Come back. Ashlei, welcome. And we need to unmute you. And swing left. Awesome to have you here. Like I said, let's just get right into it. What are your reactions? What you're hearing with Rachel, or if you just want to give us your opening, tell people who is swing left. And then get right into some real good strategy and predictions. You have an audience that's educated, that's hot and ready to hear it all.
Awesome. Well, hey, y'all. Again, my name's Ashlei Blue, political director over at Swing Left. At Swing Left, we are focused on basically flipping seats. That is like our bread and butter. We came to exist right after the 2016 elections, and we launched this tool called a Swing District Finder. We use this as a tool to help us flip the House in 2018, and we found that was super successful. And so after being successful in getting about 55 of our candidates into the House, we then expanded our strategy. And so in 2019, for folks in Virginia, you saw that Swing Left was really invested in the Virginia races. And so that was the first time that we stepped into local legislative races, and we poured a ton of resources there, almost $1 million into the districts that we were endorsing across Virginia, and we saw a lot of good wins there. One of the key things about our investments in Virginia, we saw that 17 out of our 20 targeted races were within single digits. And so we now understand the importance of making sure that we're being very laser focused on particular districts and pouring in the resources of both funds and people. So we have volunteer capacity that will funnel directly into campaigns. In 2020, we've expanded our vision even more. And so we have a threefold strategy this year. We are focused on local legislative races across 12 states. We are focused on Senate races because we know that if we flip 4 seats and hold all of our Democrats, then we can take the Senate. And we know that the presidential race, of course, is of the utmost importance. And so we've narrowed our focus in on 12 states and are totally dedicated to pouring in those resources and making sure that we are helping folks that are already on the ground, organizations who are doing year-round work, and kind of uplifting that, right. And just being really strategic about being helpful to those candidates. The big thing to keep in mind for us this year with local legislative races across the country is that district maps are going to be redrawn in 2021. This is a huge census year. And so our main objective here is to make sure that we get more Democrats in there so we can have fairer maps. And I'm on this Zoom in North Carolina, which is the home of gerrymandering. And that is one of my passions, to make sure that we just cut that crap out of our political lifestyle. Right? So that is Swing Left in a nutshell.
Well, I know it. Some of the questions is about flipping the Senate. I think we're all interested in it. So in Kentucky's race today, what do you feel like? You saw some of the primary winners. How has that changed your mind about how you'll reach the voters or anything? Let's talk about some of those states where you saw the winners. It was Amy McGrath. I went to bed. I didn't see who won Kentucky's primary. Was it Amy McGrath?
They said they are not going to call that until the 30th. So,
oh, that's right. They're still counting.
Yeah, I think framing those primaries, the big takeaway here is that we have a huge voter suppression issue to encounter. I just want to empower everybody in this chat to get very comfortable with understanding the layers of voting and the options of voting that we'll have across the country this year. Because of COVID, a lot of folks are going to try to use CDC guidelines, and that's going to either make lines longer at polling places, or it's going to cause some polling places to get shut down. I'll also flag another thing that I think a lot of folks in the progressive movement forget. A lot of our volunteers are older. And so those folks that you see as poll greeters when you get to your election site, they are not going to be able to be as active as they were in previous years because COVID is out and about. And so there are some rigorous or some organizations that are being rigorous about recruiting some younger folks, and just being more aggressive about making sure that we have more folks on the ground, because we know our seniors aren't going to be able to participate in the way that they once would. And so I think that's honestly the biggest takeaway, that we have some polling place issues that are honestly scary. And so I encourage everybody to get familiar with your local Board of Elections website and figure out where are we on the absentee process in your state, what is the early voting process, if any, and is your polling place still, or your regular polling place, if you're a regular voter, is it the same location, or are they shutting that down or moving it? And that's what's going to cause our folks the most stress. That's going to be,
and with that said, I think what I'm learning this whole week and what's really happening, just every day things change, right? And I think what makes progressive, what makes grassroots strong is we could pivot faster than the major establishment. Because when I go ask establishment people stuff there, it's so like unknown, and sometimes it's kind of moving that monster a different way. And we don't know what it will look like state by state sometimes, but we know some states that have a blue, like in Virginia, we're blue, we have more ability to sort of really control that for the voters and educate the voters. But still, the issue is all states are different. And I think your point that I think that, and I liked your opinion on this, that it's about, not worrying about persuading these Trumpy voters to to turn our way, but getting to our voters to educate them about how they need to vote and what has changed and how to do a ballot, how to follow the ballot. Would you agree that this is really the strategy?
Absolutely.
And I think I'm interested in, are we coordinating across the states? Are the Democrats, in your view, I know Swing Left has a little bit more inroad to the establishment where we don't. Are they actually coordinating? Is there any talk amongst the states how to do this?
Yes, it's just a very difficult process. I'll use a really good example. Georgia is like 10 steps behind, and we talked about Stacey Abrams' race, and there were some really important lessons learned there. And so using Georgia as an example, they realized that, listen, we're going to have a tough time with long lines, and this was pre-COVID. They made these decisions last year, and so they drilled down to make sure that each of their precincts had leadership that was not only doing the regular business of what it means to meet quorum and keeping your precinct active as far as being a Democrat and then possibly being a delegate on whatever level. It was also important for them to stay engaged with conversations with the local board of elections. And so they essentially created a system where these precinct leaders are tapped into those conversations. And if during those meetings, which can often be mundane and boring for folks, that they are flagging the issues that quietly pop up, and so that we can jump on them. And so that's a really good example of a state taking ownership of what they know is already going to be a problem. The DNC has a really aggressive voter protection program this year. Each of the states are ramping up aggressive voter protection this year. The Biden campaign is certainly aware that this is a thing that we're going to need, but it's really going to be on us, because here's the thing, we don't have a lot of the traditional tools that we had previously. You're not going to have that same flexibility to go and knock on somebody's door and walk them through a ballot. You're not going to have the same flexibility to arrange a ride to the polls and go pick somebody up, drop them off.
True.
Everything is different. And honestly, even in June, we don't know what we don't know. And so I think I want everyone to be comfortable with that, because that can be a little scary. That we don't know what we don't know, but in knowing that we have so many unknowns, it goes back to what you were saying, Catherine. We got to be flexible. We have to be ready to pivot. But I think for folks in this chat, looking at your coordinated structures, each state is going to have some type of coordinated campaign where their state party is going to create a coalesced effort, and all of the campaigns, whether they're down ballot, whether we're talking presidential, Senate races, all of those are kind of folded into a statewide operation. Get a good understanding of how those are laying out. And that's how we'll be able to be most effective.
No, and I agree with you, because we feel like it's plan A, B, C, and D, and get ready to pivot in real time. And I think, and then also think of new strategies to reach these voters and educate them. I know some protests that they're setting up voter registration. And what I want everybody in this chat to know is that all you need to do is get trained. Like the Democratic parties, they can't go out and do it, but we can do it. We need to get trained, and we can do that and get out there, and also drop lid at the doors and just think differently. And
I'll flag one other thing. There are a couple groups who are preparing. They will be fully dressed in PPEs, and they'll be deploying in these battleground states. So don't be surprised to see independent expenditures, nonprofits, and C4s dropping in your community, looking like they are in Contagion, the movie. Like, there's some folks who are going to risk it all because they understand it. And, we are, as fellow progressives, hoping that everybody's going to be safe and be thoughtful. But there are some folks who are going to be committed to some of those traditional tools and just finding new ways to get it.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I can tell you the people in our groups from Nova West, we have some badass groups in here that will arm up. HRI, these are people that will, and I'm not saying anybody put themselves in an unsafe situation. We can go to the grocery store. We go to work. We know how to protect ourselves, do the physical distancing, but it doesn't mean we can't do some things. We just have to do them a little differently and more safely. And I'm glad you said that. And I think it will be up to us to go do that. And we'll have to work with each campaign and like how we usually do. But I have a question coming in Virginia. I don't know if you're following the gerrymandering, the issue with what's on the ballot about the gerrymandering amendment. Do you want to speak to that? Is that something that's in your wheelhouse, or, about the gerrymandering in Virginia, it's going to be on the ballot for the constitutional amendment. Do you have an opinion on that, or do you want to
You know, my overall opinion is I'm glad we got some Democrats in Virginia last year. This is scary times. Honestly, I'm not fully up to speed on what the Virginia amendment will be, but here's what I'll say. This is not going to be a unique occurrence in Virginia. This is going to happen in other places. And so thank God we worked as hard as we did in the state of Virginia in 2019 to put more blue folks in that room so that we can be a part of the conversation. These are situations that we would have had no input on last year. And so that gives me some hope. I hate that they are trying to literally add that to your constitution.
Yeah.
But,
well, there's been some contention around it, and I know that, you know, maybe our special surprise guest at the end we can ask her about that. But just some other questions in here. A lot of people are interested in swing left. Are you supporting Amy McGrath? Do you actually endorse candidates? You obviously, or do you wait till after the primaries?
We wait after primaries. We do not play in primaries. Yeah, so we are primary agnostic, and we raise money for the candidates that are coming out. Kentucky is not one of our targeted races right now. There is a possibility that we may expand our Senate map because we now see that a lot of the focus is going to be on the Senate. To be, you know, fully transparent, the presidential race is not as exciting for some folks as the Senate race is because you know, it's just life. But yeah, I think that being primary agnostic has been really important for us because it allows us the flexibility to raise funds for that seat, and whoever comes out of it, they will automatically get cash from us and they get volunteer capacity. And so that is one of the keys to our success, that we just let the states make their determinations, and after the primary, we'll be there to push you to the finish.
Let's talk about your volunteers. So this is important, and how you keep them engaged and how you build that community, and you'll be recruiting them. And obviously you have an opportunity in here, Swing Left, to talk about how, you know, ways to get involved with you. And I know that that's a really big deal, to make sure that volunteers are doing things that are meaningful and impactful. So tell us a little bit about that volunteer system at Swing Left, and what does that look like?
Yeah, so the way that our volunteer system works, essentially all of our volunteers are their own groups. They are autonomous. We provide resources to them. We are here to help, but they pretty much on the ground. They run their show, they set their field plans, and so on and so forth. We do have field directors for across the country. Of course, we have our 12 priorities, but we have volunteers all across the country, and major pockets of our volunteers are in the big metropolitan hubs like California and New York, which aren't necessarily targeted states for us. And so what we do is, for the folks that are in our 12 super states, which I'll just run those down for folks.
Please tell us that somebody asked about what are the 12 super states. So girl, go.
I'll run through that list. That's Maine, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Texas, Colorado, Arizona, and Iowa. Those are our priorities, which means they are either one or all of priorities regarding presidential, Senate, or state legislative. So they may be one piece of that, or they may be all three. And so our volunteer capacity within the super states, of course, they are plugging directly into coordinateds as the primaries wrap up. We keep them engaged prior to. If the party during the primary has any general like voter mobilization or voter education stuff that's not necessarily related to the candidates, then we can kind of plug into that operation. We did a bit of that with the Wisconsin Supreme Court race. And so our folks who are on the ground in these states are plugging in directly into their party structures or the campaigns. For folks who are outside of those 12 states, they essentially adopt the state. So for example, a lot of our volunteers that are in California will be very heavily targeting Arizona. As a matter of fact, prior to COVID, they were preparing a huge travelers program where they were going to start this summer and knock through November and make sure that they get all of the doors, and make sure that everybody's on the Pebble so that they can get their absentee ballots. And so what we're doing now, since we can't physically go to these states, is for the folks who have adopted a state, they'll be pouring their capacity in digitally. And so that means joining the phone banks, which every campaign is working on launching. They're either doing phone banks, talking to folks about voter registration, talking about getting on their absentee requests, and just giving them general guidance on what the election cycle will look like. Again, using Georgia as an example, the jungle primary is hella confusing for them. And so those are the type of pieces that we're helpful on, and we'll continue to plug in.
So for me, I would sign up. I would get in, and I would just, do I have to go through like a training for phone banking with you, or do we just dial in? I get to talk to voters, because I'm obviously each state is different for what I have to tell that voter.
That's a good question. And I'm glad you asked that. So to put that in context, it's kind of based on what your skill set is. If you are a hardcore volunteer, you know how to get in Vote Builder or whatever tool they're using, whether it's a dialer, and you don't need education on that, you can hop straight to it. We do a really good job of maintaining partnerships with the campaigns and the parties, so they can they'll either give us a training that has been previously recorded, and we can share that with volunteers, so you can watch that prior to jumping in. So we will tailor that based on your experience level and what you need to get started.
No, I think that's important. And I do have somebody in the chat that I know is a super awesome grassroots badass, Kathleen Murray. I'm looking for a good resource listing early voting options for each state. And then the follow-up, I'm concerned for the big push for mail-in ballots only over in-person absentee. They're kind of, but the early voting for that resource, is there somewhere on your website to find this? And what
it doesn't even exist yet. I think we're all progressive trying to figure out how to do that. So that's a really good piece to lift up, and know that we're all trying to figure out how are we going to consolidate this data. And that's going to be an effort across the progressive spectrum. In relation to the absentee ballots, I think that was a really good point. We don't want to encourage one way to vote. We want to make sure everybody understands that there are going to be multiple ways to vote this year, and you have access to all of them. So if you requested an absentee ballot and now you feel uncomfortable about mailing it in, okay, well, here's the steps you need to take to get to your polling place and what day you should do it. And so that kind of speaks to what I was saying earlier. Let's not promote one way. And the reason why I'll say that, again, I'm in North Carolina, where we are famous for throwing away ballots in the 9th Congressional District, or what was the 9th Congressional District. And so there is a stigma around absentee ballots in our community, and we have to do work to make people more comfortable with doing that. But what we can't do is say you absolutely need to do this because of COVID, because their concerns are valuable. And also keep in mind, in Black and Brown communities, voter suppression is aggressive every cycle, and there is a stigma around absentee ballots, and knowing, hey, if I live in a predominantly Black community, it's very possible if I live in Georgia, Brian Kemp might throw my ballot away.
And they did. They went through 50,000 out.
He's done so much. And the things that they have put those organizers through even worse. And so share all the options.
Yes. So so Ashlei, so great. And I know that everybody is just taking this information in, and you can get a hold of Ashlei. Ashlei, stay in the room, because we have our surprise Zoom bomber. Hello and welcome to Delegate Jennifer Carroll Foy, and Rachel Bitecofer is back. So we have our surprise Zoom bomber with us, Rachel. So just hold up a sec. And Ashlei, you just did a perfect job ending it up where I know, Jennifer, you can pick it up. Voter suppression, the history of that. Hello, right? And the power of this vote, and all about Virginia. So welcome. So glad you can join us.
Absolutely.
Woo!
I would be being here. And I was just coming in on those powerful words that Ashlei was saying, and she was speaking truth to power. And everything she said, I want to co-sign on, because voter suppression is real. And the one thing that I have learned is the words of Frederick Douglass is true. Agitate, agitate, agitate. Power never concedes easily. It never has, and it never will. Mm-hmm. But that's one of the great things about being a woman, because we're not asking politely. We're not asking for permission. We're taking what's ours, and we're coming for those seats. We're running for office in historic numbers. We are pushing for policies that's improving our communities throughout the country, and I'm excited. And as we are coming upon nearly 100 years of women having to fight to secure their right to vote, where women protested and picketed and were imprisoned. And now when you look at the landscape in Congress, we represent less than 20% when we're over 50% of the population. So that math just doesn't add up.
Right.
And so for us to really be where the decisions are made, for us to be in positions of power to really affect our communities in real substantive ways, then we have to be at the table. And the best way to do that is to run for office. And if you can't run for office, to support someone who's running for office and to ensure that we bring our families, our friends, and our communities to the voting booth. Because I always say that there's only one place that the man who sweeps the floor at Amazon is just as powerful as the man who owns it. And that is at the voting booth. And that is at the voting booth. That is where everything and everyone is equal. So one voice, one vote, we have to ensure that we are showing up, because it's easy to complain. It's easy to turn off Fox News and log off Facebook and lose a couple friends. But if you really want to move our country forward, then it's important that we get our elected officials, people who stand for what we stand for, believe in what we believe, and will get the job done to get elected. Yeah. So I'm all in to making sure that happens. I know you all are with me too. So let's register people to vote. Let's get out. Let's bring people with us, and let's get this done.
Awesome. You are one badass. And I'm so grateful you came in and Zoom bombed us. And what resonated with me, what you just said, is that how we did have to fight so hard for the vote, and what women were imprisoned, what Black people had endured, the violence against them, the terrible history of this country with suppressing that vote. I think it means, and what it feels like to me, is to really get this vote, we have to fight just like our four sisters and brothers did. This is a fight that we're gonna have to really take on to vote. It's not gonna be just like, oh, maybe it's gonna happen. But so, and in Virginia, real quick, I'd love to figure out in Virginia what you guys are thinking about it for Virginia. And then I want to pop back to Rachel Bitecofer. And I don't know, Jennifer Carafoy, if you know Rachel Bitecofer, she's the political analyst, and she's a great pundit and a forecaster and predictor of elections. And of course, Ashlei Blue is from Swing Left. So we do, for the audience here, have in Virginia, Delegate Carol Foy also has announced her run for governor. So exciting news also that we have 2 women of color running in Virginia. How lucky are we? So just a follow up on that, Jennifer, and then I'm going to pitch it back to Rachel.
Yeah, absolutely. And so here in Virginia, one of the things that I am pushing that I wish there would be more excitement about is vote by mail. Because we know that in order for there to be true protection and for us to have people participate in the democratic process while protecting their lives and the lives of their loved ones, is to ensure we have vote by mail, but also keeping polling locations open. Because we do have same-day voter registration here in Virginia beginning July 1st, and people are homeless or they don't get consistent mail delivery. But every registered voter should get a ballot in the mail and have the option to be able to mail that in, and have the systems in place to ensure that it's safe and it's efficient. But we have to move on this now because we're running out of time. Yes. And we've seen what has happened when there's a concerted effort to disenfranchise huge communities of color. You look at Kentucky, which is a wonderful example, where you have predominantly brown and Black communities, and it's tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people having to descend on one polling location because they close all the other ones to make it extremely difficult to vote. 2, 3, 4 hour waiting lines, right. The running out of paper, the machines not working. I mean, that people have become experts at suppressing the vote. And so we have to be as good on the opposite side to ensure that we are protecting people's ability to participate. So I am supporting vote by mail. I am supporting ensuring that we streamline our absentee ballot process, getting right. rid of the witness requirement, because let's be clear, on our absentee voting ballots here in Virginia, if you make one mistake on the outside of that envelope, your vote doesn't count.
Right.
That your vote does not count. So we need to do whatever we can to make it as efficient and safe and protected as possible. And so I think vote by mail is the best way to go. If we can't get that, then absentee voting is the next best. But we have
early voting. We want people to early vote, right? And we also, but how about the money to do this? Do we have the money?
So I've asked Governor Northam to ask the Department of Elections to give us the information that we need so we can put it in the budget. We have a special session coming in August, so it'll be a perfect time for us to take this up to find out how much it's going to cost and what systems we need to have in place to ensure that it's safe and protected and efficient as possible.
Well, you keep fighting for us. We appreciate it. So Rachel, you So thank you.
Yeah.
Rachel, you decided I'm glad you came back, and why don't you wrap it up, and I'll give Ashley a chance to say a few last words, and then we of course still have some fun stuff going on at the end. So go
Yeah,
ahead.
that's great. Yeah, and I wanted to just wrap up by talking about the races here in Virginia for 2020. Of course, the Democrats picked up those 3 congressional seats, the 7th, the 10th, and the 2nd. And especially the 7th and the 2nd are very vulnerable. So, when I have my congressional ratings come out, I wanted to highlight, I am assuming a full court press by the Democrats and their supporting cast, which of course you guys are a major component of here in Virginia, defending those races. And, Scott Taylor is going to be the nominee in the 2nd. Abigail Spanberger is not facing a former, David Bratt's not rerunning against her. That's going to be a very different component in that 2nd race. When you're going up against the former incumbent, you're dealing with a person who has run and won in the district. So they have the campaign apparatus already established and are familiar with the mechanics of running a race there. And they have name ID. So it is a tougher race for Luria over there in the 2nd because of that. Certainly winnable, but it's one thing to keep in mind under those race ratings, even over in the 10th district with Wexton, is that my modeling assumes, even in a race that I'm rating, lean D or safe D, that Democrats are investing a lot of money and grassroots organizers are spending a lot of resources and effort to defend that territory.
Right.
And I do think the 2nd is going to take a lot, but also the 7th district too, to defend it. And point of caution, we know that in the 2nd, that is particularly vulnerable, and for a particular reason, because in the state legislative cycle last year, for months I was raising a fire alarm. Hey, Hampton Roads is harder because it's got a lower rate of college-educated voters, and particularly when we talk about the Trump effect, there's certain groups that are more sensitive to Trump,
Right.
and that's college-educated voters are more sensitive, and non-college educated voters. And then when we look at the racial distributions, and there's really sad reasons why, but particularly Black voters are less responsive to Trump, the Trump effect as well. And so I caution Democrats, look, you're going to have to invest more heavily in African American communities in getting them excited and ready to show up and vote in those state legislative, state Senate races on Hampton Roads, which were 2 state Senate races that should have been easy wins for the Democrats. I mean, not
Are you
easy.
talking about Karen Mallard?
Yeah,
and
well, that's a House race that they left too. But there was 2 state Senate races,
Right.
The 7th and the 8th, I think it was, and then a couple of House races as well,
Right.
that hung on investment in the Black community. And because now that happened and they saw it manifest, the loss manifest exactly the way that I warned, right? I think like now they know that Elaine's vulnerable, right? Like she's vulnerable to that. And it sucks. It sucks that institutionalized racism, has lowered expectations of that voting demographic to the point where somebody like Trump was like in the pandemic, we're looking at racial disparities of death. I mean, it's depressing, right? It's a humanitarian crisis where globally, like if you were sitting in France or Ireland and you're looking at the US, I mean, It's hard not to call it a genocide, right? You're looking at, some of these hospitalization rooms, it's 80-90% Black and Latino, right? I mean, and that's why Trump doesn't give a shit. The GOP doesn't give a shit because it's not white people dying, it's people of color, right? So we
all that change as soon as they figured it out.
yes, as soon as they figured it out, right? So like we have to help empower Black voters, and we have to be allies, real allies, and we have to be able to understand. We have to understand, like, this is it. Like, we need to help.
This is it. Winning is the only option.
Yeah.
So some of our viewers, you're moving kind of fast. I want to make sure that Elaine Luria is the congresswoman in Congressional District 2 down in the Hampton, Virginia Beach area. Then we have Abigail Spanberger, and that's in CD7.
Yeah. And Black voters will be crucial in both of those races, I would add.
I would.
But also, I mean, it's just, the party, I think, is starting, like, to understand how to electioneer better. But like I said, I'm doing a whole special on like how does the GOP do it, right? How do they get 70% of Republicans to show up? It's not that Republicans come out of the womb like, hey, I really need to show up and vote,
Right.
So we can do better.
I don't know if you're on the text, and I followed Brad text Pascal. I get that Trump's, you can't believe I got a text the other day that Biden was a pedophile. I mean, they're doing anything.
Yeah, I know. And I'm not advocating that we become.
No, I don't want to become.
But we have to understand that we're in a war.
Right.
And we're in a war where people will die if we don't win it. And people are dying now, right?
Well,
and of course they.
But when I toss it over to Ashlei, I think this racial justice movement, I want to see her opinion on what that will affect this.
Yeah.
Because it could. I mean, months ago, like you said, if I had to predict something, I wasn't sure if youth voters or communities of color would show up because they got hit so hard by disinformation about the Democratic Party and Biden and different reasons it would suppress them, right? Doing the disinformation.
Right.
Has this racial justice movement helped that? And we have to message better. But I also I don't want to forget about our wins in CD1 or CD5 with Cameron Webb and one other race. Nick Betts is also in 6. And do you have anything to say about any of
the 5th is a huge opportunity because now they've replaced Ringelman, an incumbent who is fairly digestible with not
well, they got rid of him because he married a gay couple.
And but you know what, the voters of the 5th won't know that the Republican nominee's a nut unless somebody tells them.
Yes.
Okay, so if you want voters to know that the Republican Party is a party of extremists doing extremist things, you have to tell them, right? Somebody has to tell them that. Yes. And then, it will take resources a lot. And so it will be a balancing act. And I think,
No, I agree.
Yeah.
And I agree because I looked at that race and I thought, well, this really shows that if we can get ahead of this and message on it, because I think it gives us an opportunity.
Right.
And I think everybody in this chat should understand that Republicans will go to any extreme for voter suppression, even against their own. They made sure that you could only vote at one place near this man, Bob Good, whatever.
In the church parking lot.
Near his church in his parking lot. They didn't they did a convention instead of a regular ballot. So interesting enough, we have to be very smart about that. And how about with Betts and Nick Betts and Cameron Webb? Anything more? Are we good?
Yeah, I mean, no, not really. I haven't even really had a chance to look at the dynamics of that too much.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll check back with you. But before I'm going to kick it over to Ashlei. But before I do, I want to pitch your show tonight. Thank you again, Rachel, for tuning in. And you have your show on The Election Whisperer. Premieres tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern time. Is that correct?
That's correct.
We put it in the chat. And I'm a kind of wonky, nerdy person, and I follow a lot of people you do. And you have some great guests on there. Can you just tell us tonight your guests, and then we're going to go to Ashlei and wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, tonight's, I'm having my buddy Kyle Condit come on from the Crystal Ball. We're going to talk about the deep stakes a little bit and, talk about, mostly I'm setting up the show, talking about what we'll be doing on upcoming episodes, because really this show is going to be very different than anything that's ever existed on election analysis like before. It's very nerd. It's an election nerd Disneyland.
Oh, I love it.
My Twitter feed coming alive in we're going to be like week 2. Well, Rick Wilson, who's the brains behind the Lincoln Project, I'm also on the board of, and we'll talk a bit about that, but really the episode's called The Lean Green GOP Campaign Machine, and I'm going to have him explain how the GOP does electioneering, and I'll pull out how it's different than the Democrats, so that people can understand the things that I tell people Democrats should be doing, it's not like I'm inventing it, okay? The Democrats, the Republicans have been doing it for a long time and perfected it over the course of the last couple of decades. And it's in Florida, they've been outnumbered by hundreds of thousands of voters for the last 2 decades, and yet they've controlled the statewide political offices, so it's obviously effective.
Well, it's 6 p.m. and I'll be tuning in because, again, you have some great guests. And I think for this conversation needs to be continued. It's going to be continued on your show because the unpack of what we talked about, you will go really deeper in that, I have a feeling. So again, I want to thank you for your time, and I'm going to pitch it over to Ashlei and say a few last words and wrap it up for us. And we have some other stuff to do. We're going over, so sorry, we're going a few minutes over, but it's so worthwhile. So hopefully you guys will hang in here. So Ashlei.
Yeah, I'll say one quick thing in regards to Black voters. I want everyone to remember the Black delegation doesn't need to be excited to vote. We just need to get to the polls. And voter suppression is our biggest obstacle. And so I want to reframe that for progressives, particularly white progressives who may think, oh, our messaging isn't galvanizing. Listen, we're all adults. It doesn't have to be a billboard campaign. They're not trying to win an American Music Award. Like, we want to make sure people can get where they're going and they know how to get it done. So remember that, but particularly for Black folks. The other things I'll mention, for folks who are in those 12 states that I called out, please go to swingleft.org. If you're not already involved in some type of organizing, we can get you started. We are uplifting our college program, which has a paid internship, and we are launching that this year for young folks, where they can get some cash in their pockets and still be helpful in the grassroots movement. So swingleft.org/college-programs will be your best bet for that. Please share that with young folks that you know. And the other thing, y'all, again, I cannot stress enough how what our biggest enemy is this year. And it's easy to think that it's Trump, but it's not. It's voter suppression. And that's going to be in all 50 states. So again, I'm empowering everybody here to go to your local Board of Elections website, educate yourself, educate those around you, and then plug into the movement in the best way that you can. And that's how we're going to see some big wins in November. So I'm happy to join y'all. Please keep up the good work. And it was my pleasure to spend some time with you.
And really our pleasure, because what you really said it, and really this is what it really takes, is this getting to our voters and making sure they can vote, not worrying about this Trump thing, just concentrating on our sweet spot and then figuring it out, and just also doing it. Our grassroots people pivot and they get it. And I know they're already working on different ways, so good for us, as we say. So with that wrap up, I would like to say thank you to my guests. And what we're going to do is go to a commercial, not a commercial, but I'm here in Sam Headshots, our partner. And if you stayed with me from the beginning, you knew I lost power on the first day, and I went over to our partner's shop, and we're going to hear from Sam, and then we're going to do some closing that we have about our swag, because look at my t-shirt. Can you see it? This is our, you know us, we love swag and we wear it. So we have some stuff on our hats to get out there, because we like to feel empowered. And I want to give a special shout out to our grassroots postcard writer, because they really make it happen. So here's Sam. Hey, Sam. Can we hear Sam though? I can't hear Sam, Robin.
No. This is my studio, Sam Headshots. As you can see, it's a big space. So whoever comes here, there's a safe distance between me and my clients. Make sure that you use the coupon Vote 2020 No Space to get $150 off for the sessions during July and August. And I just wanted to let you know that Sam Headshots also offers podcast recording and video tutorial recording. So if you have plans and you want to reach them via video messages, we offer that service as well. So make sure to hit me up at samheadshots.com. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the summit.
Woo! Thanks for your support, Sam.
Well, you know, it's Sam. I might have my best headshot from last year from the summit. And so thank you, Sam, for taking my picture, and it was awesome. Okay. My buddy, Stair Calhoun, co-founder of Network Nova, badass and swag sister. Take it away.
Thank you. That was so inspiring.
You can tell I need a headshot. So like I will use Sam Headshots.
Oh, good.
And then you can tell your other sponsors that I use Sam Headshots so that they want more, you know what I mean?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, that will help you pull in more people. And then say, you know, Dr. B is going to do this every cycle, and she says she's going to find one thing she can buy or sponsor. You know what I mean? Like maybe that will help you guys pull in more, because I actually do need a headshot, and I've been putting it off forever. Like I've been using this bullshit university one, and it was before I figured out makeup. So like like I literally didn't wear any makeup.
Yeah.
Like,
We're going to get you a special offer down at Sam's. And I'm going to tell you, I have a really great headshot too. And I think
Really?
it's better on my team. So maybe later we'll have to share.
I really need a headshot. Like, it's like, if the pandemic hadn't rolled in, like, life would be very different for me, obviously, and the headshot would have happened, but like, you know, now I have no headshot. Ashley, I'm so sorry I didn't get to hear your talk. I ended up adding a couple of other things this morning that ended up, I have a puppy that is peeing, like he's housebreaking, and I had to take him out. Like, I had to. And so I had to duck out, but it's nice to meet you. Could you tell me a little bit about your position at Swing Left? And
I'm gonna say something here because we do have to like go to our
keep going.
keep going because we want to talk about our programming for tonight. We're not done, Rachel. Guess what?
What?
We're doing 7 o'clock tonight. We're rolling every day, 10 days of an
4
experience.
days, 5 days,
No, we're doing 10 days. So this
10
is
days.
4 freaking days.
Holy
So you
crap!
are on day 4 for the letter E in experience, and then tonight we have our sponsor, who is Virginia Family Friendly Economy, doing essential workers' rights, and it's going to be awesome. So Stair's going to talk about that.
Wow.
And go ahead, Stair.
I thought I was working
Okay,
hard.
did we not want to run over and take a few more questions?
Yeah, well, go ahead and first finish your part. So people
Do my part? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone,
Okay.
for coming. This was fabulous. Do check the agenda for what's coming up this afternoon, this evening. Catherine just mentioned it about winning essential rights for essential and non-essential.
Ashley, I'll try to find you on Twitter.
And Rachel, you could also help with this, with our selling of our mugs too, because this is our featured item today.
Here's our swag store.
Our 2019, we won Flip Virginia Blue mugs with.
Oh, that's
Virginia
nice.
is my district on the other side.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
we
yeah.
still have a few of our.
I do celebrate
Virginia.
that.
Well, you know what, Rachel, we'll
pin.
send you a mug for being on the show in Ashley tonight. We're free.
Yeah,
mugs
we'll definitely send you 2 mugs.
No,
Yeah,
it's
that'll
a
be great.
huge
We'll send you
thing.
2
Like,
mugs.
I freaking love being in control of Virginia. When I moved here, you know, because I only just got here. I got here in 2015. We had like 1 member in the House and, you know, 35 seats to go in the House of Delegates. Right. You know, it's great.
Virginia, we're leading the way, and we're leading in swag. You can see our face.
And you know, the automatic registration bill, that was me. I was like, you motherfuckers better pass automatic registration.
You put down the MF word, and that's what we are. We're badass women. And
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
so see the mask that when we vote, we win mask, but we also feel, Rachel, when you go and
that's nice too.
wear your advertisement on your face everywhere you go. Remind people it's about the vote and be safe. And so what's our next slide? Are we almost ready here for the wrap up, or we have anything more in the chat? Friends on the, Robin, where are you? You're unmuted.
We did have some
We're
unaddressed
ready to wrap
questions.
up, Catherine, so it's up to you. If you want to answer more questions, that's
If
fine.
they want to stay, do we have 100 people?
I feel bad that we never answered any questions.
Okay, let's
go another 15 minutes if we
Yeah, I mean, I felt like we
go.
told them we would, and then we never did.
But
so.
we answered. I actually threw out those questions to Ashley, so we went through about 4 or 5. But what are we having the most?
Yeah, I would feel bad if I didn't answer some.
Okay, well, why don't you go ahead? You can read them, can you, Rachel?
No, I don't know.
You don't have them here? Okay.
Are they in the chat or something?
No, they're in the Q&A. Let me help with this.
Yeah, just pick out a couple.
Let me help with this, okay?
Yeah.
So you discussed Lurie and Spanberger, okay? And we discussed voter suppression because we do really think that
if there's anything like left that we haven't talked about.
Well, that's what I'm looking at.
There's some concern about mail-in voting, and I think that the questions are really not about Virginia. I think they're about the rest of the country, because I think that maybe we don't feel so bad about that. Is there collaboration among Democratic-controlled states to push a mail-in vote? What about?
We did talk about
let me try to get everything in here.
Well, I did. We did talk about that one. I think.
Okay.
Is there any new questions people want to put in? Because I did go through most of these.
Okay, I'm just looking. We've got all the 12 states.
Yep. I don't see any new ones in here. I'm thinking.
Yeah, there is a one for Rachel. How important for VA2 is Taylor's role in the petition fraud in 2018?
It's not going to matter. But yeah, let's see.
And anything to Ashley too. She's with us, and you know, you did you know,
Oh,
that's a lot.
another question we got is, what are the chances of Barr getting impeached? That's
Zero.
Zero.
Negative
Ashley,
0.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I have.
Oh, here you go. Here's one. Here's a good one. How come, getting absentee ballots to every, for Virginia, are we going to do a total absentee system or what, with the pandemic?
Well, that's such an unknown, and Jennifer Foy alluded to that, and she did say that they would be addressing that, trying to do both. And Ashley talked a lot about the voter suppression. So, I think, like you said, it's the unknowns. And in some of these races, let's go to some races. What you saw, who won their primaries. Did anything change for you guys once you saw some of these races, like North Carolina? I know we have 4 African-American women running down in North Carolina. Is there any kind of hope that you think that something that you feel good about that's happened that could really push them forward? Is there real momentum? I mean, I'm just trying to think if there's some unanswered.
Yeah, I'm looking through too, to see.
Yeah.
That Lindsey Graham question that stresses me out regularly.
What is it?
Go ahead. Let's talk about that, Ashley. What stresses you out? Lindsey Graham?
It's hard to win. South Carolina is just overwhelmingly Republican, and Jamie is running an awesome race, and we need to keep pouring into him because he is definitely stressing out.
The thing that's good with that is that if they think that he's vulnerable and they have to spend, like the optics of that, the psychological fear that puts on Ernst and Tillis, it's great,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Someone asked about Cal Cunningham, who is amazing here in North Carolina. We are fully dedicated to getting Tillis the fuck up out of here.
Yeah. Let's talk about those. Let's talk about the Senate races, in North Carolina, because then Ashley and I can both talk about that, and we can talk about South Carolina in that context too.
Yeah, go ahead, because we have about 5 strong minutes to go, and look in the chats. You guys look and see the questions you like and go with it. Just listen to each other.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ashley.
Because look,
Hold on, go ahead, Ashley. Go ahead, Ashley.
My take on the Senate races, I think a lot of these that were just placed in the chat have a lot of promise. The Kentucky race and the South Carolina races are very long shots. However, we are running aggressively well in these states, and so we want to keep that same energy. What I have to remind folks, elections are not in a bubble. Your campaign, even if you lose, creates steps towards a win. I'll give a great example here in North Carolina. We just recently redrew our districts for the 65th time. So it doesn't, this happens regularly here. But the example I always use is the 13th district that is now, I believe it's now the 8th district. And I worked on that race with Kathy Manning, who ran for Congress, and it was a long shot. And we lost, but we had a phenomenal team, and we ran a really great campaign. And we spent a ton of money. We raised a ton of money, and we spent a ton of money. And even though Kathy lost in 2018, what we did not anticipate was that the lines would be redrawn. And so she ran again in a primary, in a redrawn district, and she won her primary. And so we are waiting for her to get to Congress, and that'll be one more Democrat coming from North Carolina after we get past this November election, and she can seal that W up. And so that's a really good example of what can happen in 2 years in a state, particularly where gerrymandering is always a topic of conversation. You never know when things will change. The race in Alabama is always gives me a hard time.
What are we doing?
In Alabama, my family's from Alabama, and my aunt has been a precinct chair for decades. And when Doug Jones won his race, I asked her, hey, what went different this cycle as opposed to the others? And she said they actually decided to count the votes. And I believe her. I felt that, and I believed her. Georgia is going to be very special. John Ossoff's team is doing a great job. We had a conversation with them yesterday, and they're in a really good place to win, and they're going to start attacking Purdue. They've already started. They have already challenged him to a debate, and he obviously hasn't responded. Maine is looking good for us. Colorado, We got to get Hickenlooper together.
Well,
We'll see how that.
With Hickenlooper. He's lost
What?
his Hickenlooper mind.
Hickenlooper has caused some problems, but he obviously has a primary, and his primary opponents are still running strong, and so we'll see how that shakes out. But the overall thing here is that we can win. We only have to flip 4 seats.
Ashlei, could you elaborate on that on Colorado for a sec?
Oh, yeah. Well, Hickenlooper has said some problematic things in relation to Black folks in the last couple of weeks. And so where he was trending above the water, now he's in a funny territory. And so folks are going to have to keep their eye on that race because he's lost a bit of momentum. And folks were thinking he was going to come out of that with a strong W. And now it's kind of looking like the Amy McGrath situation where, unfortunately, you say something problematic, and now that primary, the dynamics completely shift in the final.
The primary.
The primary.
The primary shift, right?
Yeah, I don't really give a shit who comes out of the primary.
I don't either. I really don't.
So that hasn't been called. When is their primary? I know we have a couple primaries today.
Yeah, I mean,
they've got a couple weeks.
Yeah, like literally a can of tomato soup could beat Cory Gardner over in Colorado this cycle, so.
I'll tell you the one that I'm most excited about, which is Iowa. We got a real opportunity to get Joni Ernst out of there.
And great candidate, just like in Maine, I mean, some races, the candidate matters, right? And I'm sure the Democratic establishment thinks that a key to their victory in Colorado is Hickenlooper because of the former governorship and, the name ID and all that shit. But really, honestly, it's the demographics of the state. It's like Virginia. You could pluck Northam out and put some other dude in 2017 or woman, and as long as it had a D next to its name, it was going to win, right? Yeah.
I see Rose mentioned in the chat, Beto O'Rourke, Empowered by the People. We've talked with them, and they're doing some work trying to flip the House. The Texas Senate races look crazy right now. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. There's a lot of dynamics playing there, but the House looks very promising. Their House caucus has their shit together, and so there's a lot of hope that we can get some fairer lines in Texas. We can definitely flip the House there, and so that'll be a win for us on a down ballot. The Senate races we're gonna have to keep our eye on in Texas, though. They are in flux.
In flux. So Rachel, any last comments here, and then?
Yeah, so I mean, I think my Senate forecast has been out for quite a while, so I've covered a lot of this, and I'm going to be talking quite a bit about it,
right,
over the course of episodes of the Election Whisperer, and always on Twitter and what have you. For people who aren't familiar with that work, you should definitely read it. It's on the Niskanen Center website. But I see the Colorado race as basic, as the most, lost cause for the GOP, as I was just illuminating too. And then also really Arizona with Mark Kelly adding to the pain. He's just such a great candidate too. It's like a combination. Yeah. And then over in Maine, it's a combo of timing for Collins, like her Maverick clock has run out. Democrats are learning how to putt, but mostly like groups like Lincoln and outside groups who are more effective at tying Collins to Trump, which is like what we call nationalizing the race, are going to make it hard for her to maintain that, I'm not like the rest of the Republican.
Yeah, she looks like just a full, worse than that. Well, tell me just say something about that Lincoln Project. Some people may not, I know most people.
Yeah. So the Lincoln Project is actually the brain trust of it's like the ex-brain trust of the GOP, who all left the GOP as Trumpism came in. They fought to prevent Trump from winning the nomination. And when they failed, instead of getting on the Trump train like the rest of the GOP, they left the party. So these are the founders, a lot of them, not the founders of conservatism, but many of them are founding principles of like the Reagan era conservative movement. Bill Kristol and, Rick Wilson and Steve Schmidt. Bill Kristol's not on the Lincoln Project, but never Trump. So the Lincoln Project itself.
I'm pretty ready to go.
Okay. Oh, so Stair you ready to go, Stair?
Oh, sorry. I didn't realize I was not muted.
Oh, you're talking to your husband? That's okay.
So anyway, yeah, Lincoln Project's though genius really comes from, a couple key campaign, like a top-notch strategist.
Could I say something about it? I have seen that Lincoln Project's videos.
Yeah,
they're amazing. And
keep in mind, those ads aren't created for you. Okay, they're created for.
They make me feel good.
I know, but they're not created for you, right? So like the reason they're going after Trump on his health and age and all that stuff, like that stuff is not designed for the
Whoever is doing
mentality
that.
of a liberal, right? They're designed for the mentality of a independent and conservative Republican.
It has two things.
Yeah.
It has two things that I don't normally see, and sometimes the Democratic Party lets us say sometimes. Really good digital, whoever's doing that, really good message, and just really just hitting just hard. And I'm just, and there's money there, obviously.
Yeah.
So good for us. And it's interesting, all of a sudden they did crawl out of the, all of a sudden you start to see them now that Biden's the nominee. Now I think they feel like there's this kind of thing coming together where I didn't see them last year. Like they were waiting to spring, it feels like.
Well, yeah, no, that didn't exist last year. Lincoln
Okay, so
Project,
they're working on it.
it's new. It's a new thing.
Is George Kellyanne's wife, husband on that Lincoln Project?
No, I don't. Yeah, Conway. I don't know if he's on that. I can't remember who everybody is.
I thought he led that. Well, with that, let's wrap it up, because like my mom always said, always leave a party when you're having fun.
Yeah.
And that way, you know, we started with a bang. We're going to end with a bang. And what I've took away today is that it is all about what we know. When we vote, we win. We have to fight for that, and that's going to look a little differently this year. So I hope today those takeaways sink into all these activists, and we'll see you tonight in the room, 7 o'clock sharp with our sponsor. And good luck on your show. And Ashlei, we will be hopefully in contact. And I know you're not really have a big presence in Virginia, but I know you're still, obviously, we'll see you in 2021, as we say.
Absolutely.
I know you'll be back, but we're here. And so to everybody,
George Conway is on there. I knew that.
I thought so too, but that's okay. I mean, you can't know everything.
I don't sleep or like anything. But, you know, I'm a one-woman show.
I know you are. That's what we are. And again, so for everybody here in the room, all these grassroots people.
I need to hire that person to be assistant, though. Obviously,
maybe
they know my life better than I do.
Send your resume to Rachel Bitecofer, please. And then
I have no money to pay them.
I want to just encourage, you know, this is the grassroots activists. We are what makes it happen. We're women. We're leading the way. And all you postcards writer that post, and all these candidates get this. They love these postcards. They make a difference. You know, we value what we do, and we don't listen to what other people sometimes, establishment, tell us.
Right.
That's
go with your gut. All
right. With that said, good night, everybody. And thank you again to our great guests. See you in the Zoom room.
Bye. Bye.